Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of One Vision. This is Theo, your host for the episode. Joining us today is a wonderful and brilliant mind from Europe that I happened to have a chance to meet last year, Nicole Königstein, Chief Data Scientist, Head of AI and Quant Research. Welcome to the show, Nicole, and thank you so much for spending time with me today.
It's totally my pleasure being there. Thanks for your invitation.
Thank you. And thank you for all the chat before we started recording. It's always so much fun talking to you. There's so much to talk about. But before we start, for those who are not familiar with your work and your writing, you're working on a second book, and last year we were on stage together at Quantmate. Can you give us a little bit of background about what you do and how do you get into this really fun, exciting world of AI?
Well, basically, I did get into AI because I was thinking about what would have future or what would be interesting to pursue in the future and what would have a huge impact on us. And I read a couple of books and I decided that AI would be the most interesting industry to be in. And I thought also it would be more interesting to be actually part of a revolution. So being actually someone not only using it, but actually developing it. That brought me into the field. And that said, my background is in data science, machine learning, computer science. So I can program you a compiler, I can write you a CUDA kernel to run your deep learning model on, and I can also develop a deep learning model, which I actually did already. And I've been in finance for some years now as well, so it keeps things interesting.
Definitely keeping things interesting. There is so much intersection between the two fields, and I feel like we tend to treat it so much in a silo, but yet, they two do influence each other. And I loved our last conversation in London, even though it was just a few months ago. That was in November last year. That feels like a lifetime because ever since then, the AI news cycle has not stopped. As a matter of fact, if I stop reading the news for like a day or two, it just feels like a whole year goes by. For someone like yourself, who you say you're not just part of the revolution, but you're actually developing and being very active within it. Did anything catch you by surprise in the last few years in terms of where we have gone with AI development and all the interest in the space?
So first of all, yeah, it feels like ages for me too. It feels like years, not months. So much has happened. And as far as the things going on, so yeah, I recently finished my first book and I was like using a lot of papers and I felt like so overwhelmed because I felt like every day there are so many publications, you can't quite catch up. And as far as my second book goes, which is also about deep learning and transformers, I was just finished with my second chapter, and then came Llama 3 out, and I talked about Llama 2. So once I was done, I had to revise it because a new model came out, because I didn't want to go pre-publishing, because we will be pre-publishing this month, and I didn't want to go out with an old language model. So much to what is happening. It catching by surprise. Well, it didn't catch me by surprise that it came out. I knew it will come out, and they already talked about at Meta that they will launch Llama 3, but I didn't think that it will happen so soon. And it was like a huge improvement over the old model. And regarding about the AI development, and what surprised me was more like, since we have that case with ChatGPT and OpenAI, it seems like the world just noticed that AI exists, which is not true, but they they react like it is, like we just invented it, then in fact we have that for way over 50 years already. I mean, if you think about the statistical learning, all those things, we started out, we already had 2 AI winters passing by. And I just had the long short-term memory model, which has now, or like, I think 2 weeks ago or something, a new paper trying to refresh the monument of the impact of that LSTM model. But that was developed in 1997. And I mean, this is over 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago. And this was deep learning. And we had like the CNNs, the convolutional neural networks from Jan LeCun, also in the 90s. So also way over 20 years ago. And I mean, one of the breakthroughs was for deep learning in 2016, which is 8 years ago. So it's most certainly not new. The only thing what is new is the accelerated pace of it. So the development got much, much faster, which is just because we now have more of the means to it. So we have the hardware, we have the GPUs, we have much more processing power, more speed to accelerate the development, and we put much more money into that, and this is why the things are faster and more sophisticated, but it's certainly not new. So
it is not new. I remember Shaky the robot. That was one of the first machine. No, that's a bad word. That was the first thing. It almost looked like a washing machine, and it was able to navigate itself. It has enough intelligence. I believe it has like a camera or something to navigate itself. And that was the very, very, very beginning of self-driving, for lack of better words. And that was back in the 50s. It was black and white. So it is absolutely not new.
yeah.
But you're right. All of a sudden, I think everyone has a chance to actually play with it, to create their own graphics, right?
They I think just all the people, not only the specialists or the technical people, are now involved. It's open to the public, and this made people more aware what's out there, and then the discussion started, and also like a lot of companies are trying to get into it, like it's almost a must for a company or a startup to leverage AI. Otherwise, it's outdated already before they started out. Like, no, you don't leverage AI. So no, I don't invest. No, I won't. It's not interesting. So it's almost a requirement, I feel, for most companies nowadays. So all are rushing in, no matter the costs or the sense of it, so they don't think properly about it.
Then there is that. The amount of money that is going into the space just because you have those two words in your pitch deck is astounding. I do hope that we will be a little bit more, I don't know, careful maybe the wrong word, but a little bit, I don't know, more conscious about it, because A, not everything is really about AI, and B, at the end of the day, it's about what you are using the technology to do and how you're changing how we're doing things, not because you sprinkle a little bit of pixie dust in there. And talking about things that are being thrown around a lot, people do talk a lot about, oh, we are responsible AI, we are looking at AI ethics. In some ways, I almost feel like we are starting to AI wash a lot of these things. I saw the other day, a company came out and they say they have the world's first responsible AI core banking system. And I read through the entire thing, right? I'm like, but what makes it a responsible AI core banking system? I couldn't figure it out. I reread it twice. Other than they put it as a keyword in their marketing material. So it's doing us a disservice in a lot of ways, I feel like. What are some of the key things in your perspective, in your opinion, that we need to keep in mind when it comes to adopting AI in financial services? Because financial services is a regulated industry, as we all know. It deals with people's money. You can't really just, randomly move things around. You really do have to be careful in what you do. You really do have to make sure that it works all the time. It's reliable. So what are the things that you would advise people to keep in mind and remember as they start going down this AI journey? And, to that point, can we actually be bias free? That's something that a lot of people think about. We need to be free of bias, but a lot of the data, historical data, was biased to begin with. How do we go about fixing that?
I've been talking a lot about these things lately. And one thing, even you shouldn't answer a question with a question, but what I often like to do is I like to point out how responsible are we as humans. So, for instance, if it's for a portfolio trading application or service in some way, like picking assets and trade the assets more automatically, let's say, just like as an example. And there are certain decisions based on that from the AI model. And then we say, well, we want that model to be ethical, correct, and responsible, and it should be transparent. So then we need to think about what about that portfolio manager who trades just the asset because of his gut feeling or his long-term experience, but 2 days or even maybe 1 or 2 or 3 hours later, he can't explain to you anymore or to his clients why he made that decision. It was just a feeling. I can't explain it. It's my feeling. It's my experience, and he just washes it down. Like he won't get into that. So I think we need to approach it also from that side, that we are overly critical when it comes to AI. So we want it to be perfect, but we are not. So just because it's something we feel we can't control, and it's sort of that algorithm or machine making decisions, but we can't backtrace the decision a human made correctly, but we can do that already to some extent with AI. So I think we need to think also about what do we want, what is better for us. Like if we have in a financial service, let's say we have another application deciding if I get that credit or that loan or whatever or not. And I get the reasoning and the non-biased reasoning purely on facts from that AI after just pushing a button, or going to my, let's say, local bank, to the guy I was always talking to, and then he's saying to me, oh, well, no, I can't give you the loan because, I don't know, there was a change of policy or whatever he's coming up with. But this is then not transparent. You know what, where I'm trying to get it. So I think it's hard to just say we need to be more responsible with AI if we are ourselves biased and not responsible, and to establish then background rules for AI to be responsible and ethical and non-biased. So if the training data is already biased, it's hard to get an unbiased model out of it. So this is really hard to do.
That is so true, because we almost sounds like we are creating two sets of rules, and we are asking something to be perfect. And as you say, we aren't, because we can't always explain our actions. And I know I myself always tell people, I don't know, it's a gut feel. And I like this person, I like this founder, I like their pitch. I can't explain it, right? I do that too. And that is a really good reminder. Now, here's the question, right? Like you were saying earlier, it feels like there's new applications, new publications, new something every single day. I think I'm at a point where I give up on trying to keep up because there's always something happening. I'm like, oh right, yes, I missed this one too. And there is the whole fear of missing out, I think, with a lot of folks in the industry. And I believe that's also why we often see people saying, oh, they are very interested in finding out what they can do with AI in their organization. They want to do something about it so that they don't get left out. But when you take that number of people who say, I want to do something with AI, and then you look at actual deployment in financial services, the number is much lower beyond, they do a proof of concept, they did an experiment, and then, a lot of them just pause. What are some of the roadblocks that you think we have in our industry? And what should they do? Should they, like, I often ask, like, what are some of the use cases that you want to do, not because everyone is doing it, but what are some things that actually deliver value beyond, I don't know, a chatbot or beyond using it for marketing? How do they even get started?
I think one of the hardest roadblocks, especially large institutions like large banks face, is legacy systems. This is, I think, the most traumatic roadblock, because I remember it's over a year ago or something, I was speaking at an event and talking to some data scientists from one very large Swiss bank. I don't name the name, but y'all can guess. And they told me that they are using BERT, but they use distill BERT. They use it for summarization cases, but they can only use distill BERT because they don't have the computing power or in general the setup in-house to do more at the moment. And it takes too much time to get to the next level, to leverage more power and get speed things up. And kind of the same, but for an American bank, for a US bank. So I had a discussion, I think like 3 or 4 weeks ago with that bank, and actually giving a seminar for them in July. They want to leverage more advanced technologies away from the classical ones and also away from the classic deep learning models. So they want to really get more into transformers and all that. Let's not call it fancy, but more timely things. And they kind of told me the same. So they also lack the computational resources to advance fast enough. So they know they are always behind. They are starting out now, then already the others are far ahead. So I think this is one of the things really stifling. So if some, like say consultant or companies come into that banks and show an interesting project, have a proof of concept, I think what often helps the progress is that they will have high initial investment to really get to the point that they can use it properly and leverage it properly. And this is most likely the problem why AI solutions won't be accelerated that fast in some financial institutions. This is just that problem. And another thing, what I can say is most certainly they have the problem with the talent. So there's a talent gap. So a friend of mine who works for another large bank, he told they have problems to retrain talent because it's way more fancier to work 2 or 3 years for a cool hedge fund or something and then go move on and even create their own company. So then again, so for those large financial institutions, it's hard to retain talent. And also, I mean, even for other like hedge funds and other financial institutions, I think it's still hard to compete with cool, let's say, tech companies right now also seeking for talent and AI. And I can tell you firsthand, they are not shy to offer a lot of money and a lot of good things why you would want probably change the industry. So I think that is kind of also the bottleneck, that you compete for talent. And since finance kind of brings together certain things and talents you need to know, so you need to know about AI, you need to know about finance as well a bit, and also know your tech stack. So I think this narrows the potential employees down quite a bit. This makes it hard to get like the projects then really up and running. And there's actually sort of a book, a very old one from the 1970s. It is called The Mythical Man Month, and it goes like around software development basically, but you can stretch this kind of out to AI. So a lot of companies not familiar with that underestimate the costs and the time and the talent which needs to go into that. And I think when they see and hear about that first AI case and proof of concept, they think it's fancy and interesting, and then it comes down to what they need to put into and start developing it and see how slowly it might just progresses, because they don't have the right software and technical setup. They don't have the right talent. So they need to do their homework first to get even further. And then you and I, we both know it, a lot of project managers will already kill the project because it takes too long to get it up and running. Or other stakeholders, like the managers up in higher ranks, they say, no, it takes too long there.
It takes too long. They can't get the return in time.
Yes,
It costs
exactly.
too much. And then,
Yeah.
not to mention, a lot of the original tech stack is so old. You need to.
Exactly. You have legacy systems, and they won't replace it. I mean, they're running those old IBM machines, nothing about IBM, but old systems, but there are those really old systems and running on old code. And I know there's that saying, never touch a running system. This is literally what they do. They are afraid of touching it, because if you're poking at one point, there open so many gaps, so many holes, and so many things you need to fix, and you won't be able to fix it as fast as all the problems coming up. So
it's scary if you think about that, because now you're undertaking an entire transformation of all the systems, and you probably don't want to be the one CIO or the one CEO that brings the system down during the day.
Exactly.
Well,
so it's the next one and the next one, and it gets older and older.
I read recently, and that was really scary. It reminds me of the command and control center for, I believe, some of the nuclear facilities in the US was still running on 8-inch floppy disks until 2019, precisely because of that, because it's just too much to upgrade. But to think about something that is so critical for the whole world that is running on such old code, it scares me. I'm glad they finally moved away from the 8-inch floppy. I had not seen that for so many years. But you're right. You need the talent, you need the time, you need the money, you need the understanding of how the old systems work. You need to update all of that. You need to, the list is really, really long. But if anyone is interested in how to get started, go find Nicole. At least you can walk them through on what they need to do. But talking about talent, that is something that's top of my mind, because the kids are teenagers and, we think about, oh, what should you be thinking about? What will you be doing? And then at the same time, all these headlines that keep coming up that said, oh, this company is automating XYZ, and so they don't need as many workers. I think that's just an excuse, but then again, it is changing how we work. There's no, denying it. It will change what we work on. That's also a reality, good or bad. So, do you have any predictions on this whole future? Because you touched on the retraining of staff. What should people be actually thinking about? And then more of a recent topic that I see popping up is people ask, do we need a chief AI officer, for example?
So first of all, I think we need to remind us as well that things have always changed. We had the Industrial Revolution, and I don't know if you know, but for instance, the very first computers run on punch cards, and those punch cards were invented from loom. So this was basically for automating for a company doing the fabric. So how can I say it? It was basically automating creating fabrics, and the one inventing this was thrown into the river by his employees because their job got automated away because they did it by hand, and now they had that punch cards, and the patterns and all was done automatically by that machine because it had that punch card and they did it. So that being said, they changed, they somehow survived. We will too. And we just need to adapt faster, and we need to continuously learn. So it won't suffice to start out after university, one job, and stay in that job until retirement. I don't think that will be possible anymore. You will change, you will have to adapt, you will have to change fields, companies, and not only companies, but really fields or your profession. You need to be more dynamic in that. So you will really have to adapt to the rapid pace of technological development. And another thing is, I think there will be more hybrid workplace. For of course, AI and humans will work more together. So AI will be augmenting human capabilities and not really replacement, but more side by side. And I think the beauty of all automations, like with the example with that company I was just telling you, the employees threw that owner into the river, as was also sort of automation. And I think automation is good if we automate the boring task away. And this is what will be happening. So this allows then also on the upside, employees to focus more on being strategic and creative. This brings me also to if we think about the younger generation, like you mentioned, so what should now or the next generation be studying or learning in school and university? So I think it becomes more critical to develop skills in areas that complement AI, you need to be able to do critical thinking, problem solving, and you need to be creative. So you shouldn't be like most might have approached university in the past, student-wise and professor-wise, just commit to your mind all the exercises and hope that most of the exercises what were done in class will come during the exam, and you don't actually have to know it. You just shut it down and that suffices. So, a lot of my co-students did that for an algorithmic class, and they didn't understand what they are doing. They just, committed to mine, and that was it. But I think we need to teach the kids to think, to be creative again, and think, like be able to think, to have their own mind, and not just rehearse or rehash what they heard in school, and to be really again innovative in a way, because this is a way their creativity and innovation will come from, and then AI will help to make things happen more faster, help them. And I think also like AI will like enable in, for instance, in financial services and other areas, a more personalized customer experience. So you have more or highly personalized financial products and services. It will improve customer satisfaction and loyalty. If you think like you have that neutral counterpart, hopefully unbiased, where you don't have the feeling that it just says hello to you because and greets you and makes some small talk, because back in the mind is I need to sell you something, because with a lot of sales you just have that feeling they are nice to you because they have an alternative motive. So yeah, I think it will go in that direction.
I do get worried though. That's probably just, because I'm a parent, you naturally get worried, is that we can't change the way we teach children fast enough, right? So education by and large is still pretty the same. I'm looking at the kids, they're in secondary school. And how they teach them and what they teach them is still, it hasn't changed much. Just recently, my son had a math test, and they gave them a online digital calculator to go along with the math test. And they're solving linear equations. And my son was telling me, he said, oh yeah, everyone got a perfect grade because all they need to do is to plug in the linear equation in the online calculator. And that was it. I'm like, what did you guys learn?
Yeah, but nothing.
Nothing.
Typing.
Exactly. They're typing. They're learning how to copy the problem and put it into the calculator and get the answer, right? They're not thinking on how to solve that. And I do get a little worried when I look at that. It's like, oh, wait, what?
This is true. I mean, the educational system needs to change. I know my former university, I was just recently given a talk at that university. I spoke with my former headmaster, and he told me that they will change how the students will learn and interact and get their grades. So they will refrain from doing formal exams in the long run. They will get projects, and they will be assigned with tasks and will be evaluated on how they are solving and organizing the achievements in milestones in solving those different tasks, so how they actually perform this, and this will be more in a real life setting. So they need to organize them either in alone or in small groups, and then use the tools at their disposal to solve the problems properly and move forward. And the grades will be based on that.
That is encouraging. We need them to move faster, right? As you were saying,
it's not that simple. I think it's hard to actually then create those things properly. I mean, there need a lot of guidelines be established how you then create this, because with the formal exam, even that is not that easy to grade, but all the time. But then you have like your key for the solution, and then you can give like small rewards if something was going in the right direction. This is about it, right? There's literally not a lot of gray zones. There's more black and white setting. But if you have that dynamic landscape and problem solving skills, you're trying to evaluate how one comes from one step to the end of the project.
That's a lot more work.
This is hard.
It is.
Yeah, it's more work. I mean, they will be having lesser, overall the professors will have sort of lesser work for teaching because the students will have to teach more themselves during the projects. But still, I think, yeah, it will be a lot of work to at least establish this the first couple of years.
Wow. And then you need to sort of have everyone moving in the same direction too, because otherwise it's really hard to get a standard, right? A lot of the education is about standard. How I know you go to a school and this is what you get when you leave. Okay. All right. On to some other easier topic then before we wrap up. What gets you the most excited in the next 12, 18 months or until I see you again?
Oh, this will be probably in November.
Hopefully, yes.
I will be at Quantmate since I'm on the advisory board for this year, so I most certainly will be there. But I think 18 months is way too far.
Okay, let's go with 6 months. Yes, you're most excited for the rest of the year.
And end of the year is good. So I'm of course definitely excited about my second book writing and to see how this comes along. And since we talked a lot about AI, something what I did not mention is like a lot of interesting things will be happening also, I think, in the financial space, but in general, in most of service-related industries, will be AI agents. So basically, these are sort of autonomous programs which can perform tasks and make decisions and then communicate also with other agents if you have a multi-agent setup. And what you can basically do is you can think of an agent as a sort of a member of your team, like extending your team with specific skills or a particular job to do. And yeah, I'm talking right now with a closer friend of mine to fund a company in that direction. So this gets me excited. So yeah, see what's going.
Wow. That is cool. My agent will talk to your agent, or my bot will talk to your bot.
Yeah, sort of, right?
Yes. And then we'll just go off and have our coffee while the bots talk.
This is actually very good because the bots, these agents, they are already agents writing emails, so we can get this done already by them.
Okay. Let's go. That sounds like a future that I can't wait for. That would be good. Well, anyway, so thank you so much for your time, Nicole, and congrats on your second book. When is it coming out? Soon?
Well,
in June?
We will pre-release first 2 chapters by end of the month, and then it will be continuously be updated. And this time it's with O'Reilly Media, so it will be available over their platform as soon as it's in the early release.
Perfect. O'Reilly Media. We can't wait to read it. And as quickly as things change, let's hope that you don't have to rewrite and update too often.
Well, if I have to, I'm gladly doing this because I don't want to bring like old things out, so to be able to keep up with the pace. But yeah, hopefully I don't have to rewrite the book when I'm at chapter 8, starting again from chapter 1 or something.
Never know. That might be version 6 then. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Nicole. Appreciate it. And it's always fun when we get to chat, and even what we get to chat that is not recorded. That was a lot of fun too. And I can't wait to see you in London in a few months. And for the rest of our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of One Vision. Hopefully this was as entertaining as it was for Nicole and I. It's always great catching up. And we will talk to you next week.